Welcome back. In this video we're going to be working on the basic Plum Blossom skills for our Plum Blossom assignment. The final assignment will obviously be a finished painting of Plum Blossom with a variety of different actual blossoms and branches and one big thick branch coming through. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running through the skills of painting a thick branch, bending and twisting with 3 values in any direction. That's this part. 3 different kinds of branches going sideways, up, down, and that's the branches that you'll add in here. Then we're going to have the stamen, the filaments from the side view and from the front view, plum blossom just before opening, plum blossom from the back, plum blossom with just after opening with the stamen and filament, and then plum blossom fully open from the side with the stamen and filament, and plum blossom fully open from the front with the stamen and filament. Inside your packet are all of those examples. So here inside the packet are examples that I've taken from the traditional guidebook, the Mustard Seed Garden Manual of Painting. And these that I have in class show you how to do the branches. Okay, it shows you up, branches pointing up, branches coming from the side, branches coming from the side there. It shows you how to do larger branches with 2 sides and an empty center. Okay, and here's one growing from bottom up, from the side down, from the side up and down, so you can have a variety of those branches. Here's like the big limb with a couple different values on it. And then in the back here we've got the stamen and filaments on the last page right down here at the bottom. We have complicated blossoms with more than 5 leaves. And then we have just the simple blossoms with the different 5 leaves. We've got blossoms from the back, blossoms just coming open, blossoms from the side view, and then down here blossoms from the front view. So all of the information you need is in this packet. And remember, using this as a guide to learn the basic parts is what it's for. You're not copying exactly, you're learning. And then when you put it all together, you won't have the packet and you'll be working as an artist putting those pieces together. So to get started, you will need one of your checklists, and you're going to take this at the end and staple it to whatever other pieces of paper you've got to work on. The pieces of paper that you're going to be working on will look like just normal 60-pound paper. It's the watercolor paper from my classroom. Okay, and you'll just put a couple of your examples on each page like this, and then at the end we'll staple all those together. So to get started, I'm going to use these blank pages, and I'm going to start with my biggest brush and get it wet and get my palette with a little bit of clean fresh water before I get my brush dirty. I'm going to get a few dribbles of pure ink on the side. I know it's kind of hard to see because my palette is already kind of dirty. I'm going to put pure ink in there with using the straw just like we've practiced in the past. And then starting here, I'm going to use my brush and get the water kind of toned in a medium gray tone. So if I pull that across the paper, ooh, that's super black. Way blacker than I was expecting. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of water in it. That looks a little better. There we go. There's my medium gray tone. So you should have a medium gray tone to get started. If you want a scrap paper next to you so that you can experiment and get what you need, I would do that. Then for the branch coming from the side, you do want your brush to be fairly on the dry side so that it can have that scumbly look. And what I do is I just kind of press down and come forward, and as I do this I kind of rock and rotate the brush and then lift up ever so slightly as I get farther into the branch, and then twist to get thinner branch like that. So there's my thin branch at the end, thick branch at the front. Now I'm going to dry my brush off again, and I'm going to dip back into this thicker ink and just kind of pat my brush on the top so I don't get a lot in, because I want it to still be dark. And that's not dark enough, so I'm going to get a little pure ink here and just pat my brush, but yet again I want it dry. There we go. And this part is just for the bottom or the top of the branch, depending on how you do it. And you want that to be kind of the darker tone, so that you've got a different kind of three-dimensional quality to your branches, just like we had in the bamboo. Now, as I go back over the top here, I'm going to just do a little bit on the top like that. And on some of the sumi-e examples that you might see around, they might have big knots on the branches, which is great, fun to do. But for us, as long as we have three tones, we have the medium tone, a little bit of white of the natural paper showing through, and then darker, that would be great. If you have more tones than that fit together, perfect. But this, I would say, is a good example of finishing that first one, a big, thick, twisting branch bending with three values in any direction. Okay. Now we're going to do three different kinds of branches. I'm going to switch brushes to a horsehair brush here, and just load it with that darker medium ink that I had before. And in this one, you could do any of those examples that we found in your painting manual here. You know, having some go starting from the bottom up, and then another branch, and then another branch. Some of them might be coming from the side down, over. You can kind of choose which one you would like to emulate and try to do, and then do that. Okay, so here's one like coming from the bottom, and this will kind of mimic the way that you have done your bamboo branches in the past, but these ones are going to be a little bit more on the curvy side rather than the other ones were on the straight side. They might grow from the bottom up like this. They might grow from the side down and then back up, or continue down. And these will be the branches that you attach to the big, thick branch. You might also want to practice leaving these spaces like we did with the orchid flower petals, so that you can have that continuation of idea, and that's where eventually the plum blossom flowers can start resting, in between those empty spots. Okay, then the last one I want you to do is a branch that's got like two sides. So if I have my branch growing down this way, and then I have the other side of it coming this way, making sure that there's a top and a bottom, and then there's the continuation of that idea as those branches come together. Okay, so here the branches, one bigger branch here coming down and blending into one. So that would check off your three different kinds of branches. Okay, moving on to the filament and stamen. That is also that's on the last page of your handout, right down here. Okay, and what that basically looks like, very easy to do. It's just a circle from the front on. It says from both the side view and front on view. So from the front on view, I'm going to draw this a little bigger so you can see it in the video. A circle with a bunch of lines, then fine lines coming out from the center. Of course, they should all be different lengths, so there's not like a regular pattern, because remember, again, sumi-e is about balance and harmony and positive and negative spaces. So that being the filament on the inside, and then the stamen are usually pure black, and they're dotted around, not in a regular pattern again, just in a whatever kind of pattern, and the human eye will fill in that those are all kind of connected. Okay, from the side, your filaments and stamen should kind of look like you've got a half circle if you're viewing your flower from the side, and then of course your filament would come this way, straight out of it, pointing up, with different, and my brush is really wet, I apologize for that, and then your stamen would be dotted around, kind of following those. And again, you can have some that are just hanging out on their own, and the human eye will fill in that there's something connected to that farther down. So that's the filament and stamen from the side and from the front view. Then, to start in on the petals of the actual plum blossoms. Now, all of these plum blossoms in our demonstrations here are single, just single blossoms by themselves. But of course, in the final picture, when we create the final picture, you're going to have to clump them together and have a variety. Here's some that are closed, here's some that are just beginning, here's some open from the side and looking from the back, here's some from the side overlapped behind the branches. So you really want to have a variety of ability to do different kinds of plum blossom blossoms. All right, so here we go. If I fill my brush up with kind of the medium toned ink, get it dried off, we're going to start with the first plum blossom just before it's opening. And I'm going to draw these nice and large so you can see them better. But of course, you're going to have to make them fit your picture proportionally. So the first one would just be a nice oval like this. And then on the bottom, where it attaches to the branch, you would have like the little black pieces that attach around the bud like that, and then it would be attached to the branch with a stem. Okay, and that's right as it's before it's opening. If we do one from the back, this would be exactly the same kind of a thing, except you would, this is the one from the back. And then the one from the front, as it's just opening, if you want to trade it around, you would do that same oval. And then you would just see a little bit of the bud bottom there where it connects. And then the little extra petals would come something like this. And you wouldn't see the stamen or filament because they're not able to be coming out yet. Okay, so that would be the plum blossom just before it's opening, and the plum blossom kind of from the back as you're viewing it from the tree. The next one, just as it's starting to open, this one in our example would look more like two petals, one oval coming this way, and the other oval maybe a little smaller, not quite the same, coming that way. And then you would have the filament coming straight up from the middle, and the stamen peppered around the top of that, kind of like that. And then you would have the stem coming off underneath, something like that. Okay, and that's just opening. Then the plum blossom fully opening from the side would end up having 5 different petals. Okay, and it would end up looking something like this, where you would start with the main petal in the background, and then you would start with the petal on the side, and another petal on the side, and then the other ones coming up here in front might look something like that, and then the stamen and filaments would kind of come up from that center and have the peppered stamen around the top, something like that. Then, if you wanted to and had the space, you could add in the stem like that. Okay, then and this is from the side, and then from the front on view, you would have the 5 petals kind of opening evenly. So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you would have that circle in the middle, and the filaments coming out this way, and then the stamen sitting peppered all around like that. Okay, now in our example in the book, there are many other variety of, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit backwards, so you can look through here and decide what you want. There's also more complicated versions right here in the back where you've got, ones with multiple layers of petals. So you could look at those too and include those into your worksheet. But those are all the ones that I've listed on here, and I would like to see all of these mastered before you move on to your final picture. So again, our final picture looking something like this, we want to see all of those skills on this sheet fully mastered, and all of the examples to follow are in the packet that I've made based on the Mustard Seed Garden Manual of Painting. Okay, and that's how you complete your skill list for the Sumi-e Plum Blossom assignment.